And today I have with me a guest in our second of our series of four covering the candidates for Oregon Senate District 29. So tonight is Andy Huey is here joining me. Andy, thank you so much for coming on Captive Audience.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and have been a longtime fan of the show. I really love
Well,
whenever you guys have Steven on as well. It's always interesting episodes to watch.
yes, well, we're trying to provide a service of many kinds to not just like I'm in Umatilla County, not just to Oregon, but it can go anywhere. If you've watched our show for much, you've seen we talk about a lot of things. And so I'm happy to have you here. I'm appreciative that you're able to join. And just so everybody knows, this is pre-recorded because we had a little conflict for tonight. So we're pre-recording this today, and I'm glad that we have the opportunity to do that. So Andy is from Wallowa County and lives in Enterprise, Oregon, and is running for Senate District 29. And instead of me reading your bio, I think it's better that people hear from the candidate themselves. So if you would please tell us about yourself, Andy.
Thank you, Sunny. Yeah, so I live in Wallowa County. I've lived there for the last 6 years of my life. I am a seventh generation Oregonian. My family came throughout most of this district back when Oregon was founded and helped found most of the region around us. My family had a big impact within the Fort Dalles area, even down into Condon. And actually, the city of Imbler in Union County is named after my great great aunt's family. And going back with that, and it's been quite an interesting journey. And I've grown up in the region. Being in this region has shaped a lot of how I view the world and how things and policy that I've helped create. And as an interesting fact for many people that don't know, I'm also a triplet, specifically a polar body triplet set. So that's some interesting facts about me.
And that is interesting. There's not, I don't think that is very common, not very common. And
No.
all the triplets survived, as well,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, there all of us are around and running around all over the state. So if you're in Wallowa County, you'll most likely, especially if you stop in at Safeway, you'll see my brother. And you'll look at him and you're like, "Is that Andy?" No, that's my brother.
So you are currently the secretary of the Young Republicans of Oregon.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And you're a precinct committee person in Wallowa County, right?
Yes, representing the 3rd precinct in Enterprise.
Okay. And what do you do for work?
So I've done a couple different things. What I currently do is I work for a hotel. I'm pretty lucky. I get free housing for working with a hotel, and I run their desk as a customer service front desk manager, um, and talking and dealing with customers' issues that come up at one of our hotels.
Hey, well, that's a nice perk having housing
I
there.
know
I know.
it's a pretty sweet gig that I don't know how I got, but
Well, that is nice. So, have you've graduated from high school and you have an associate's degree of arts from Blue Mountain Community College. Do you have any other higher education?
so I'm actually currently continuing my college education at Eastern Oregon University. I am getting my degree in cybersecurity, politics, policy, and public administration, and a minor in pre-law.
Okay, and so let me ask, I normally wouldn't ask somebody how old they are, but I'm going to ask you because you have such a baby face. And yet, I've been reading from your website, which we will post tonight. You've been around the political scene for a number of years.
Yeah, I got dragged in. I don't want to say dragged in. That's quite a funny turn of phrase for it. Imagine a young me kicking and screaming. No, that's not how it went. But I got involved in the political sphere pretty early on in high school. right around my sophomore year is when I got involved and got brought on to Representative Bobby Levy's staff. And I worked for her for a few years as on her campaign, as well as in her office in Salem, being a district liaison for Wallowa County. I am currently aged 20, so if I am elected, I will be breaking 2 records. I'll be breaking the record set by Democrat Winsley Campos last cycle of being the youngest ever elected to the Senate. And then I'll break a record set back in the 1800s of being the youngest ever elected to the legislature, beating a record set by the Democratic governor's son at the time.
But your political activism goes back even before Bobby Levy. You, in your bio, it says that you were helping Greg Barretto.
So that was with an FFA. So I was not.
Okay.
I apologize if that's not clear. I had one of my people went through and actually edited that recently. So I need to double check it if they edited that narrowly. So I was involved with FFA. One of the things that we did do was within parliamentary procedure, how Parley Pro used to be. It's not that anymore. They went back to the national standard, but it used to be ag issues.
Mm-hmm.
You were arguing with Robert's Rules of Order and parliamentary procedure on ag issues and actually getting to debate. And I actually got to attend quite a few meetings with Representative Barretto and Senator Hansel talking about those issues that were currently going on and facing the state, and bring that back into the local FFA chapter. So we were able to make effective arguments when we were going against some of the quote unquote heavy hitters within our FFA district, such as the city of Imbler.
Okay. So what made you decide to run for Senate District 29?
What made me decide to run was I'm seeing a lot of issues that are slowly occurring in our state, and those issues are needing to be solved. And this district is ever changing too. So as many people know, our district has 4 major industries within it. The main industry that is going to be persistent throughout this district and will be for quite a long time is our agriculture scene. Agriculture is the backbone of this district. The majority of this district is rural land and agricultural land, whether that is for wheat or even just ranch land. The second item that has come in that has been quite a large portion of where we're getting our funding from is tourism too. Wallowa County does bring quite a lot of the tourism dollars within the district, but you're also seeing that expand into Union County, Umatilla County, and even some of the counties in the gorge with Wasco and Sherman, bringing some of those in for the fishing along the Columbia River Gorge. And including, we've had an ever-expanding system with the technological sphere, especially where you are down there in Umatilla County, Sunny, as well as Morrow County. Mm-hmm. And even just outside of the district, actually in the city of the Dalles, they have the Google data center there. And down in the Prineville area, we also have Amazon and Apple and Facebook all having data centers as well. So Eastern Oregon has become a technological hub as well. And we need somebody who's also able to focus on those issues to continue to bring up and build what's going on in our district. And then the final large industry that we do have outside of all those would be small business, but if you're focusing on an actual one, it would be focusing onto the medical sphere.
Okay. So, in this district, as you mentioned, it covers 7 counties and 4 portions of counties. With this redistricting, it's crazy that it goes. I don't know what happened there. Do you hear that?
I lost you. You broke up a little bit for a minute.
Oh boy. Well, I don't know what's going on there. Hang on. Let me find out. Something happened. And so are we back?
I can see you. You're sounding good and you're moving around at least. All
right.
I lost everything. That wasn't great.
Okay. So, well, I have a few tabs open because of some things, and I think one of them just started talking, and that was weird.
I didn't hear that.
I don't think that I've ever.
But that is quite weird.
Okay, well, that was.
Computers are lovely.
That's
sometimes.
Weird. Anyway, so as I was saying, or Senate District 29 it does cover all of Gilliam, Morrow, Sherman, Umatilla, Union, Wallowa, and Wheeler. Then a portion of Clackamas, Jefferson, Marion, and Wasco counties. And when I look at the map and I'm going, Clackamas? Really?
Yeah.
Because that's crossing the divide. This whole redistricting that happened is so, in my viewpoint, unconstitutional, even though the courts have said it isn't. It's where we're at. So it's large. Have you been around to all of the areas?
Yes, early this summer, I hit all 11 counties. Early on, before my official candidacy was announced, I had my PAC file back in February. So I knew started my running back in February, where I visited and was attending all 11 county commission meetings. I was rotating through each county, going to their commission meetings and listening to what was occurring, and also going through their meeting minutes. And I've also, this summer, I went to every single county fair on top of that, and has hit the majority of counties multiple times. About 3 to 4 to 5. I know some of them I've gotten 2 to 3, but not much more than that. It's kind of fun. The get from one corner of the district to another. It's a 6-hour drive. That's part of this district being so large, and it's even worse because you actually, if you're wanting to go to the county seats for the two that are across the divide, Marion and Clackamas, it's still 6 hours to continue going along I-84 to get over there, and I'm not in my district the entire time going through that after I leave the Dalles.
Yeah. It's they really we're creative. I'll put it that way. We're creative in creating this new district.
And I will. There's a lot of stuff with that, and some of it's even still tying back to the ramifications that we had with the Supreme Court with Reynolds v. Sims back in the 1960s, and that is still affecting us today with what's currently going on with how our redistricting is, and part of our unequal representation in Salem.
Yeah. So I would like to know what are the 2 items that you believe are most important affecting Oregon?
The 2 items that I am ever seeing that is infecting Oregon, especially people in this district, the first one would be the state's overreach into the family's normal domain that the family controls. So being involved with trying to take away parental rights in the school district, trying to force some of the transgender ideology and abortion ideology onto the students. That entire conversation, I think, is the most egregious, especially now after session has ended, the ramifications that's appearing to us. And parents slowly have woke up during COVID, and they're starting to see more, and they're trying to fight for their rights, but we're constantly being beat. The parents are being beaten back down, as well as the people who are advocating for the parents and the students. It's driving divide between the body, and especially it's driving a larger divide between the East and West. The other issue that has strongly been a conversation is ballot measure 110. And we've recently had a quote unquote fix with that was passed with the legislature. We won't see those ramifications taking place instantly. It's going to be a long watch, and I think it's going to not be as successful as everybody's touting it to be. I think the only way we could have solved the issue is going back to a full repeal of ballot measure 110 and putting a stop to it instantly. And if the voters want to bring it back, they need to know the full ramifications, because we saw what it's done to our country. And growing up within the district, we've seen the growth of homelessness, especially since ballot measure 110. We've seen it in Umatilla County growing. It's been growing in Union County. And when I've gone back to Wasco County, especially the Dalles, they always had a homeless population there, and that was always a problem. But every time I've gone back, it's gotten worse, especially since ballot measure 110. And I think drugs are not the main reason for people being homeless, but it is a large contributing factor to why they are staying homeless.
Yeah, it's hard to be employable when you're, high all the time. So, and it's okay. So if elected, how can you help to fix? What are your thoughts and how you can help to fix these two items.
So ballot measure 110, we will be watching to see what happened, especially after this new bill occurred. I would still be advocating for a complete utter repeal of it. I believe we still need to have a conversation about having proper treatments facilities set up and getting people the adequate help that they need and keeping that funding section alive from the marijuana tax that we proposed. But unfortunately, those have not been effective, and most of the facilities, especially in Eastern Oregon, were never given the proper adequate funding to even do that. And we've admit Eastern Oregon has been forgotten quite a lot in the past. And even with talking with Commissioner Schaefer there in Umatilla County, you guys had the psychiatric hospital there that was there to help with some of these issues, and then the state cut its funding and got rid of it. So it's a balancing act of, okay, the state claims that they care about this and they care about the people that are needing services to help, but they're going to be ignoring the large swath of where these people are coming to too, which is out here in Eastern Oregon. So we need to have, number one, it needs to be fully restricted again. The drugs, you shouldn't. We have this new class U misdemeanor, and I'm sorry, I don't think having a misdemeanor is going to solve the problem. And we've had that conversation, and Will Lathrop has even concluded with that as Attorney General, and I will be really excited to see when he wins that Attorney General race against Dan Rayfield.
Oh my gosh, we need him so bad. I'll tell you, everybody needs to support Will Lathrop. We've got to do everything we can. To make sure he wins. We do, bar none.
And I will always support him. Wallowa County boy running and has a very strong history, and having strong leadership, especially coming from the executive branch, is going to help make the legislature's job quite a bit easier in being able to solve these issues. If we're fighting in the executive branch at the same time we're fighting the judicial branch, that's not commonly where effective policy comes out of. And so reclassifying and actually getting harsh penalties put back on it for people not wanting to be doing this out on the street, or being even doing it where they're not actually seeking help. Because we have the system, but if you especially talk to a lot of the sheriffs and undersheriffs and the deputies and the chiefs of police that are all around, they're talking about how they stop citing people for this because nothing's happening.
That's just a waste of time.
It's wasting their time. It's wasting the department's resources, and nothing is occurring because we never had any penalties put in place and no ways to check those penalties. So we're really needing to refocus that conversation with 110 and bringing those focuses back. Now, the conversation with the invasion of parental rights from the state is, I don't want to say we need to take what Florida did, but essentially we need to have the idea of actually bringing a universal right to parenting idea back into the state and bring that idea to seed within not only parents, but also the education system, where the parents have the right to advocate for their students and their children, mainly their children, not the students. They are both. But we need.
Don't you think, now let me throw this out. Don't you think it would be better to cut the school's authority?
Oh, I definitely.
It would be better to cut the school's authority because, quite frankly, the parents have the inalienable responsibility over their children, right? I mean, so why have a parent's rights bill when you should frankly cut what a school district's authority is where it ought to be?
No, I do agree. I think they both are key elements of what we have to bring into this. Unfortunately, the other side of the aisle is less likely to cut the authority of the school district, where they would be more likely to give a universal rights to parents to be able to do what they need to do with their children. And it's at that point it becomes a narrative argument between us, the right and left, and that's how it's going to be framed. And we need to take care of and do restrict the authority. I had 13 bills with Representative Levy. And some of those bills did focus on restricting a lot of the power that the school districts had and changing it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the examples of the power that the school district has, if you're a student that is trying to get a GED under the age of 18, you have to not only have your parents sign off on it and the student sign off of it, you have to have your supervising school or ESD sign off on it. Well, what happens when your school district or supervising ESD does not want to sign off on you going and getting your GED and then entering the workforce and being a productive citizen of our society? We need to remove some of those powers because I understand there was a reason for it, but that reason is minute at this point and should not be there anymore.
So let's see, here in Oregon, a minor can go get an abortion without their parents' consent. And yet you cannot get your GED without having 3 permissions, 3 consents. Something seriously wrong here in Oregon.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's such a ridiculous battle. And
I had no idea about that, to go get a GED if you're under 18.
yeah. And in a lot of states, you don't have to have that supervising school or ESD sign off. You just have to have your parent consent, say, yes, we agree with this path for our student. And I'm sorry, the school doesn't always have the best interest of the student in mind. They have their own best interest.
No, they're looking at the money coming in
Exactly.
from the kids. Yeah. So, well, that is a good segue then into one of the questions I was going to ask you, is what you thought about school choice and the money following
I
the
love
student.
it. That was one of the proposed bills that I had with Representative Levy last session. That unfortunately never got its own hearing. They did have another school choice bill that did get a work session, but nothing ever occurred with that. And good friends of mine are involved with the Oregon Educational Choice Ballot Initiative that's currently going around. And that's where we need to be focusing on, because unfortunately it's not going to happen statutorily unless we get some massive narrative change and massive change within that legislature. And I really believe that it's going to pass, because a lot of people believe in school choice and believing that the student should be able to get the money that's followed to them, because we pay a ridiculous amount of money per student and we get the worst educational outcome in the nation. That should not be a conversation at this point. Something's failing, right. And clearly the current system that's there is failing, and we need to fix it.
Yes, and when you put the bar on the floor, there's nothing to reach for, you know. They've eliminated all requirements for graduation for a number of years here in Oregon, and our education system is just in the gutter. It's in the gutter, and we do throw money at it tremendously. It's a waste for what we're getting in return.
Well, and there's even a funner conversation that I've been in the Capitol multiple times this session. One of the conversations that was occurring.
Good for you.
One of the conversations that was occurring down there, one of the times I was down there, was in the Senate Education Committee, and they were having a conversation about getting rid of the Teachers and Standards and Practice Commission and combine that back into the Oregon Department of Education, which I understand their reasoning behind it, and I'm all for deregulation. But you're talking about a separate independent agency getting remerged into an agency that has a ton of power, and the duties that are going to be requiring to make sure our professionals are being certified and properly able to teach our students is big error and red flags that are getting thrown up. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that moving forward. And it's quite a mix of who's supporting that and not mainly coming from the other side of the aisle.
Interesting. So you have in your bio, I read you've helped submit like 18 bills or work on them and whatnot. Have any of them been passed?
Unfortunately, a lot of them did not. None of them got passed last session. The majority of those occurred last session, all focusing on the educational realm, with the personal experiences I had, including trying to fix the GED issue. A few of them got work hearings, and then they said, I don't think this version of the bill is the proper way for it to occur, and let the bill die and hide in committee. I had some conversations that they moved one of the bills as a tie-in with Representative Sanchez's bill, and then never got any follow-up from that from anybody of what bill it actually got changed to and where it's going. And even researching and trying to stay ahead of what's all going on in the legislature, especially as a person who's outside or even been inside, is quite a tough task, especially with so many bills popping up in that long session.
Oh yeah, the long session. Oh my word. And so the session ended, today. And I'm very glad it had this short session. I'm really glad it had. So I would like to ask you, did you support the Senate walkout? And would you walk out? Would there ever be something that would cause you to walk out and deny quorum as a
Yes.
senator if elected?
And I'm actually in agreement with Senator Bonham. Him and I have had a few conversations. I believe they should have stayed walked out to the last day. I believe Senate President Wagner took a miscalculation of what our senators are willing to do for their constituents. He thought that they would not be willing to lose their seats. And I'm going to be frank, that's a Democrat view. That sounds like you're trying to hold power to yourself and trying to be a power grabber. But our senators were willing to stand up for us and walk out. And I believe they should have walked out to the last day, came up an hour before the end of sine die was called, and just passed the budget and walked back out again. Which, that's a risky move to take yourself. But that's how it should have occurred, in my opinion. You should have let HB 2005 die. 2002 should have died. And to my conversations with some other members of the legislature, they were pretty close to being killed if they did not strike that deal and come back in.
Yeah, well, you and I are in agreement over that. They had said, and especially when they walked out, they had stated, we're going to stay gone until the last day. And then they didn't. And they should have kept that power, because yes, you know what? This is the consequence. They are going to lose. So not to be able to run again for reelection. And that was a shame. I thought that they came back in. So what type of thing? Are you willing to do that if elected?
Yes, I am. There's always conversations with what the constituents want. And this is a powerful tool in our war chest as we are in the minority. Until we win more seats, we only need 2 more in the Senate to be at even odds with the rest of the Senate to have technically have control over being a split Senate again. 2 seats is all we need.
So do you think the walkout hurt Republicans?
I don't think it hurt us at all. I think it helped us. I think the walkout is showing that we're willing to stand on our principles where the Democrats are not.
Okay. Then let's go to, what is your position on the invasion of the illegals entering the United States and entering Oregon, and Oregon being a sanctuary state?
I believe our border should be entirely shut down. I'm actually also in agreement that I think we should not only have a southern border fence, but we should also have a northern border fence, because we have a lot more crossing happening in our northern border than we do in our southern border, because that's a lot less of a hard check. Our southern border is a lot easier to guard, though.
Yes, it is.
With that, we have a ton of these people coming into Oregon. They're coming into our local communities and taking the resources that are meant for local citizens. They have not provided anything into the bucket that is the slush fund that we're using to be able to provide services for our citizens. And especially we're seeing this, and Democrats, I'm very happily seeing the consequences that they have sown with governors like Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis sending the migrants to these sanctuary cities, such as New York, Martha's Vineyard, and flooding them with the problem they've created for these communities in the South. And they're starting to notice, hey, maybe this is not a good idea. But it's also, Oregon has had a problem with it, especially with us having marijuana. And we've had Representative Cliff Bentz talk about this quite a bit, where in Southern Oregon, especially around Jackson, Josephine County area, we have the cartels actively operating there and growing pot there to sell around the United States. And part of what they're doing with this influx of illegals coming into the country is they're bringing them in and they're saying, "Hey, you owe us a debt. Now you're working on us, and we're having now active slavery back in the United States."
Yeah. Okay. What are your views on the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I think it's ridiculous. And this is a problem that everybody is sitting here, oh, we need to have everybody's view being heard, and it doesn't matter whether they actually deserved to have their view heard or not. Kind of saying that in a very bad way. We always talked, especially when I was growing up, we're a colorblind society. That was drilled into us. And now you're having the modern left and the modern administrative state coming down and saying, no, you shouldn't be colorblind. You should be seeing color and actively being anti-racist, which I'm sorry, if you're being it's being a weird thing where being an anti-racist means you're actively being racist and seeing color and making racist policies to disenfranchise not even the majority population of the country anymore. We're having weird systems being brought in to show what's occurring, and we should not be focusing on race, color, religion, or creed, anything that we have protected as a reason for hiring practices. We should be looking at, do you deserve this job? Do you have this? And make the decision from what the merit and what your skill set has brought in.
Okay. Good. Do you experience that in your community at all? DEI or even at your workplace?
I will say Wallowa County is very insular to where we are. We are kind of divided from the rest of the district. I mean, we have the Wallowa Mountains blocking us one way, and then we have Hills Canyon surrounding us in the other two directions that we're able to leave. So it's also a population where we are it's a majority white county, where we do have quite a lot of historic Native American lands, and also used to have the city of Maxville, that is now a historic site where they did have quite a bit of loggers. But with that, it's not been a conversation because there is very little people there for that conversation to be even brought up.
Okay. So what are your views on the transgender care for children? This is something that I won't add anything else. I'd want to hear. It's hard for me sometimes to not interject my own opinion here, but this is about you. We want to hear you as the candidate, Andy Huey.
I think it's sickening. I'm sorry. There's been a shift in the conversation of what's been occurring with transgenderism. The conversation was originally that it was within the DSM-5 as being that you were identified as mental illness, and now the left has totally taken that and ran with it and said they're not mentally ill. They just don't believe they were born in the right body, which is the definition of the mental illness that has occurred with gender dysphoria. And the fact that we are hiding it from parents, we have states that are actively saying they're going to kidnap the children of other states if they come to their states, such as Washington and California, is ridiculous, and we should not be allowing that to occur. In my opinion, I don't really want to see you transitioning at the age of 18, but at that point you're an illegal adult, and we don't have much additional power over what we can do there, unless we want to, quote unquote, pull what Ronald Reagan did when he put the age restriction requirement to federal funding for getting highways and interstate road monies, to where you had to have your legal drinking age of 21 to be able to get that funding. I think you should be 25, possibly at minimum, but I don't think that should be a thing at all, in my personal opinion. But definitely children should not be getting this to occur, because you're irrevocably damaging yourself, and you'll never be able to recover from what's occurred. And it's pretty dangerous for that. And you're mutilating children.
Irreparably. I mean, there's no going back. And in some of the things that I've read, the hormone blocking drugs changes their brain development. So it's not just the physical, but it's the emotional and mental capacity of children. We're talking about children, not about adults and what they decide to do, but about
And
children. They need to be
even with
protected.
that, if the children ever come off with the hormone blockers, there's been claims that these don't do anything, they just block your hormones. No, that's not true. And especially for the future generations, this is irreparably harming us, because you're going to have a whole bunch of these people, especially young children, who are currently coming up through the system now and dealing with this. We've heard stories of them parents saying, oh, you're going on puberty blockers, and when you're 18 you can make your decision of what you want to be. And that's ridiculous. Let the
No,
natural
it
course
should be the other way
let the
around.
natural
It's there's no puberty blockers, and when you're 18, you can decide what you
yeah
want to be.
and
But
this will also irreparably harms the future that you can have to even reproduce and create your own children, especially towards
yeah,
males and females. The puberty blockers have specifically damaged a lot of what's occurring, and there's been no real long-term studies on what this does. And we're even seeing Europe taking a back step of all the steps that they have moved on this and saying, oh, we messed up, this is not right, and we should be
they've been the
learning.
study.
We should
Europe
learn.
has been the study, Candy.
Exactly.
That's why they're back. That's why they're reversing course. I think.
I think that too, but I know many of the left, and especially in our legislature, because we do have high population of medical professionals in our legislature. They're going to say, oh, that's not a truth or evidence for us to support ourselves. We need a study done by the CDC or FDA and NIH to be able to back us up on our data, and that's not going to occur. And if it does occur and they wait that long, we're going to be doomed as a nation.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on climate change? And I ask these questions because as a legislator in the Senate, these are all things that come up in legislative sessions.
No, you're right. I am. This has been a thing that we've constantly been hearing about, and it's been driven into us. I think the policies that are coming out of certain steps like this is slightly absurd, and how we're driving this. I do subscribe to the Ice Age theory that was proposed out of the University of Utah, especially tying back with Missoula flood, that we are still naturally exiting a ice age, and that's why we're naturally warming up as a planet. With this, if they're wanting to actively help and not have the Earth go into a climate change and continue to change as they claim, what they would be focusing on is energy independence with nuclear energy, and especially thorium small modular reactors. They would be focusing on carbon capture technology. They'd be focusing on all these technologies that have extra benefits to society, rather than restricting us and pulling out what we have that's currently making us the most prosperous country in the world. And we really do need to go back and reverse that nuclear ban. Eastern Oregon can be the home of where the state generates the majority of its nuclear energy, especially if we're focusing on small thorium salt reactors. Those are the safest reactors that we could ever do. And my grandfather was a nuclear engineer on a submarine. If you have the proper adequate systems in place, you will not have a nuclear meltdown like everybody's afraid of, like what happened in Fukushima, what happened in Chernobyl, or what happened in 3 Mile Island. Most of those occurred because of human error and human stupidity, not because the systems or the technology was not safe.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. And so, because now the carbon capture, carbon is the building block of life. So I don't know about the carbon capture part. I can go along with everything else because our volcanoes and the fires that have gone on all over the world, um, are contributing more to, global warming, as they call
Mhm.
it. Yes, I can concur on your viewpoint of this is natural. What is happening is nature doing its course. I don't believe man is changing that
Mhm.
course. And we've done so much in our country to eliminate pollution and control a lot of pollution. It's fabulous. But but what I see now is things that are getting implemented that are hurting industry.
Exactly. When I talk about carbon capture, I am mixing it into a future look. So there is a item that is called graphene. Graphene is based off of pure carbon and is one of the strongest materials known to man. It is pure carbon. And in my wonderful world, we would be using this if they're wanting to actually slow or reverse climate change, which there can be conversations about. I'm not sure if that's the proper scientific way that we would want to occur, because this is the natural way that the world has been changing for many years, or not even just many years, many millennia. It is
Yes.
having us have a conversation about, okay, let's capture this excess carbon that is in our atmosphere. Let's make it into graphene, have this as a buildable resource in helping lower the cost of materials for new construction, for new roads. And at that point, we can get into the conversation of we are going to be fighting the trees for the carbon that they have. And I don't want us to get that excessive. That might bring us into another dystopian world. But being
Yeah.
able to
I've
build a
heard
cheap and
Bill
effective,
Gates say, let's just chop all the trees down. It's
that's
like, oh
ridiculous.
goodness.
We should not be chopping all the
Yeah.
trees down. And the current democratic policies that are being involved is causing more climate change with our forests keep being on fire. And we've seen that especially out here in northeastern Oregon more than anybody else, especially in Wallowa County. It's a tourism designated economy, but it feels every single year by the time we hit July or even into August, we have all the hotels are booked by fire crews because there's too many large fires going on due to democratic policies not effectively working and maintaining our forests.
So I want to switch a little to, because climate, the whole climate thing has to do, they say, part of an element of that is then green energy.
Mhm.
So as Wallowa County, what about B2H coming through Wallowa County? And do you have any impacts in Wallowa County from solar projects or wind turbine projects?
So wind turbine projects is not going to be common in Wallowa County as it would be in the gorge, because we do not have the Columbia Plateau or the gorge providing a wind funnel through the region. Solar has been a conversation that has been brought in. It's semi-effective depending on where it's placed. It would be more effective out with Zumwalt Prairie area, but that's a wildlife preserve, so we're not going to be building solar panels out there. With B2H, B2H is a fun conversation because Union County was where a lot of the opposition was put up. And the reason B2H was opposed in Union County was not because of what it provides and the benefits. Everybody understood that, but it was because of where it was being routed through. It was being routed right over a huge, important lake to the local community that was an area that a lot of people went to go swim. And to my knowledge, B2H was not direct. Wallowa County did not have a point to object to that or have it to a citizen referendum
Hmm.
like it did in Union County. But we do need to continue to build up our energy capacity. We are in one of the most lucky positions to be in the United States. We're in the Pacific Northwest. The Pacific Northwest is one of the greenest regions in the United States because we have so many dams that generate electricity.
But
And
they're
the
not
dams are so
considered
vital to us.
renewable energy. The state of Oregon does not consider hydro to be renewable energy, Andy.
Well, this that is true. This was a study that was done by an outside group that did bring that, and this was represented to the federal government back before that position was officially taken. And renewable energy, I think it's ridiculous if we're not focusing on hydroelectric, because solar panels and even wind farms throughout their lifetime, they're not paying for what they actually cost because they have not been brought down in price enough to do that, and the majority of them are not recyclable. So when you lose the big wind turbines, you have that fiberglass being buried underground because it has nowhere else to go. They can't recycle it into anything. And you have the rare earth materials that are in the solar panels that are not being reused either because they've been tapped out. So I would consider this renewable energy not even renewable itself, because the way that we have to generate it's not renewable yet either, and self-sustaining.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, the thing is I would like to see Oregon reverse their 30 plus year policy that hydro is not considered renewable energy. Because with that, we would not be, if that were the case, we would not be um, helping China. We're financially helping China so much with all of this. And I recently read an article that the Bureau of Land Management is going to have something like 8 million acres of solar across the United States. And it's going to be in the western part of the United States because that's where most of the BLM land is. And, they are an agency that was to look over lands for public use, right? To be the stewards of the land for public use. And I think this is I will inject my opinion on this because I think it's such a waste. I think solar, as a point of use, you've got solar panels on your house, then you can help reduce your electrical consumption. Point of use, I think, is the better use of it, not putting it into transmission lines and, like where I live, eating up a good agriculture land.
Exactly. We should not be having this be the main system of generating electricity.
Yeah.
That it can't sustain us, and even with us getting the batteries that Elon Musk is trying to develop is not going to help us at all, because we're going to be so far behind with the generating capacity to be able to provide for the entire state.
Yeah.
And those are going to be failing in 10 years anyway, because lithium ion batteries don't survive that long, because you can't have them charged 100% or they start losing capacity. And as they're still naturally charged, they start losing capacity anyway. So it's you have to have like a really good system to do that, and unfortunately none of that's to the point of where we're able to develop this adequately.
No, I think all of this will be obsolete in a short period of time, but what it is doing is costing the state of Oregon a lot financially in tax credits and enriching other nations, and then at the cost of Oregonians agriculturally. So it's I don't see it as a big win. I would like to switch gears. What do you think about, what are your views on the single payer healthcare in Oregon? There is a bill I just recently read that I do believe has passed. I don't have the number, that actually makes it harder for doctors to have private practice here in Oregon. It is about it hurts the smaller clinics here. And Oregon has passed that we're going to end up with a single payer healthcare system.
No, and that specifically destructs us out here in rural Eastern Oregon, because all that we have are these small rural health clinics that are struggling to even be as they are under the current system. Mm-hmm. I don't think having this single payer system is going to help us at all. I think it's going to cause us to waste a ton more money, and it's going to lead to less efficient treatment, and we may end up like Canada, where you have to wait 17 months to see a specialist or even see your regular doctor. The United States is the reason why we're so effective at our healthcare is because we have competition, and this competition drives competitive pricing. And there is conversations where the insurance industry has created even more issues within that transparent pricing, and what we're able to do with our current needs and what's best for the patient and what's best for the situation.
Mhm.
But we should not be instituting a single payer health system. We should not be requiring everybody to pay into the same health system. It should be up to the individual person and the individual region. And especially out here in Eastern Oregon, we have been really good. We've decided, especially in Wallowa County, we've decided to form a healthcare district that is supported by the taxpayers of the region to make sure we have adequate care, not only for us, but any of the visitors that come out to visit us. And that's becoming a large common thing that we're seeing out here in Eastern Oregon, that we do these hospitals can't survive on their own, but they provide such a important service that the voters chose to impose a tax on themselves to support these local hospitals.
Wow. And that's something because it is, I'm very familiar with Enterprise, and Joseph area in Wallowa County. And that's quite a burden. But that hospital there provides a lot of service. And I know through Lifelight, you're able to get somewhere else as well. But there is a tremendous amount of tourists that come into
And
the area.
with that, we're one of the few entire regions in the state that the hospital actually provides EMS service to the community as well. Wallowa County's healthcare district covers the entire county,
Wow.
and that is a quite unique comparatively to every other county. Because if you
Mhm.
look at like Union County, they have two healthcare districts within it. It covers just the city of Elgin, and it covers just south of Union County, Union and
Mhm.
North Powder. And you sometimes, especially in these rural areas, that's what's needed. Morrow County does the same with their county hospital. Harney County does a lot of the same, and we have uh, Wasco County is in a mixed, where half of the southern half of the county itself is in the healthcare district itself.
Well, Andy, I'll tell you, I hope our viewers are going to see that you are very well rounded in topics. I've tried to cover a lot of things more than I did even in my last interview. And for 20 years old, you have quite the knowledge. But speaking of being 20 years old, do you think you have, I mean, clearly you think you have what it takes, or you wouldn't be running. But what special skills have you got, the two, that you will bring to the table as a senator?
One of the things that I did very early on, as we talked about earlier, was visiting all counties. I got to visit all counties very early on into the campaign, and I visited them very quickly. I bring a energy to this race that I don't think would have been had if I was not in it. Uh, I also believe it's helped my opponents show up more and start providing more and talking to more people because they have somebody that's out there talking with people and visiting people. And it's brought a lot more visibility to this race. I have the energy to talk to people, go visit, and I do a ton of different things that I'm showing that I'm very effective at. And we also have the conversation going back to our district is also ever changing. And you need somebody that's not only representing what's currently in the district, but also how the district is changing and being able to effectively change the policy that is coming out of Salem. We have the Joint Information Technology Committee in Salem that develops all the technology in the state and what's occurring with that. And they do not have a person under 40 on that committee at all. The majority of that committee is sitting at the late 50s up to their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And the majority of them exposure of technology was when it was first occurring rather than what's currently going on. So there is needing to be a new voice coming in that's helping shape these policies, because a lot of these policy areas are either being left behind or forgotten about because there's not enough adequate knowledge. And that's a nice thing where I was a policy person before I chose to run, being able to bring those different views and being able to help build that general knowledge base
Mhm.
is what's quite important.
Okay. So there is a bill that I don't know if it passed, and maybe you do. There was a bipartisan bill that put a limit on campaign financing. Did that get passed
Uh,
this session?
4024 got passed. They switched it for there was the original bill got amended to the Dash 5 amendment, which is way better than the Dash 8. Sorry, the Dash 8 is way better than the Dash 5. It was Dash 8 that got it proposed. I apologize for getting that backward. The Dash 5 was horrid. It went from a one-page bill to a 48-page bill with incredible restrictions on what's occurring. The Dash 8 brought it to about 24 pages. I'm personally still not a fan of what's going on there, but I do know that they are trying to prevent IP9, and there is a second ballot measure that is blanking my head at the same time, and making those constitutional restrictions that would be a lot worse.
Okay. Okay. Well, see, there you are. He's up on what's happening in this legislature, and also there was another a bill that I think it's going to hurt Oregon, and that is the legislation that was divesting $1 billion in public pension money out of the coal stocks.
Mm-hmm.
And having it go into, they want to, a big deal is let's pull out of everything petroleum, or coal or so-called polluting, and put it into alternative energies. I think that's going to hurt the pension system.
Oh, it's irrevocably going to hurt us. The pension system is not designed for social investing. If you want to do
Yes.
social justice investing, you should be doing that with your own money. The pension system, yes, it is supported by the taxpayers, but it's also being paid into by the people who work on the taxpayer time and represents the body, the state as a whole. And we should not be forcing them to take a less pension from their fund in the future, but also requiring now the state to supplement that fund because we made them say, hey, you can only do these bad investments and do social justice investing rather than focusing on what has proven to work for us to be able to generate more money for the state to be used and more money for that pension fund.
Okay. And then I see an article from the Oregon Catalyst that both Val Hoyle and Salinas voted no on the Anti-Crime Laken-Riley Act. And this was, I believe, just passed yesterday. And it was, of course, mentioned in the State of the Union last night, or talked about a little bit, passed yesterday. And here you have two of Oregon's representatives that are not going to support, the illegal crimes that are happening on U.S. citizens.
Yeah, those two representatives do not represent the people of Oregon. I'm sorry. They represent the corporate interests that helped get them elected. Andrea Salinas drew her own district to make sure that she had a solid district to have. Val Hoyle stepped down from BOLI to run for that position. And they both tried to secure their seats, and both of them have been involved in, I would claim, blatant corruption. The Young Republicans have adequately gone after Val Hoyle for what she's done, not only as BOLI commissioner and not being transparent in what's required by law, but also continuing on what she has done in the federal government. Andrea Salinas, we all know, played dirty games against Mike Erickson, and that I would claim that's the only reason she won, because the difference was only 7,000 votes, and the Libertarian candidate got that instead of Mike Erickson getting that. And I would attribute those personally to the games that Andrea Salinas was playing in, knowingly publishing false information.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to go really against what the Democrats, they claim that they're against false and disinformation and misinformation, but they're themselves perpetuating it. And now they're using an AI system for the Secretary of State to collect that and report the citizens to the police departments about the information that they're sharing, whether it's knowingly or non-knowingly known to be that type of information.
You know, I saw that there was a bill that was passed limiting AI in political campaigns. That's the only portion that I saw. And I thought, what about truth in advertising? You know, because, so for example, I was looking on the political side, I think that's very good that they will have to have truth in advertising. Is this an AI generated commercial? Right? Let's just say maybe that's what they're talking about. But I had looked at, I was looking at some real estate, and on there it had said it was an AI generated picture. So they had, put the furnishings on the inside using
Mhm.
artificial intelligence. And I thought, okay, well, this is at least they're claiming that. But then it made me see other pictures and go, I wonder if this is, and they're not claiming, this particular agency is not claiming that this is AI, the furnishings that are inside. We're entering into a very interesting time having artificial intelligence.
It is, and it's driving a lot of the conversation. Right now, it's showing much in the political realm because we had, for example, Vivek Ramaswamy running, and you could hear he used AI. The skinny guy with the weird last name standing up here taking the direct quote from Barack Obama's, and the claim was that he used AI to generate a lot of his conversations and speeches that he brought forth. And we're seeing this take effect, and especially with the video generation and image generation that's starting to come out with Dolly, DeepMind. It's becoming incredibly dangerous, and we're entering into a world where we're not going to be able to tell fact from disinformation and false information.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to find what's actually occurring because these images, especially within the year, and the advancement of technology is moving so fast that we're not able to keep up unless we're actively preventing what's going on with it.
Well, Andy, we have gone an hour. We have gone an hour, and it goes by very quickly. And I want to thank you very, very much for coming on Captive Audience, being willing to take the questions and having these conversations. And it's been a real pleasure to speak with somebody of your age that is pretty knowledgeable and speaks very well.
Well, thank you for having me on here, Sunny. I was really excited to be here. It's the best time that I got to be on, and thank you for giving these questions. It means so much that we are having people that are wanting to talk with candidates and learn what we're actually about. And if your audience wants to learn more about me, as you've posted earlier in the chat, you can go and visit my website. My phone number is at the very bottom there. You can give me a call. I'll do my best to answer. If I don't answer right away, leave a voicemail and I will call you back.
And the website is huey4.us.
Yes. So that's also the name of my PAC. So it's my last name, HUWE, the word for, FOR, .US, Huey for us.
Huey for us. So thank you very much. And I appreciate you so much that you came on. So have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
And share the message. Help Andy. Share the message.